Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel as written to us by Luke. Jesus journeyed to a city called Nain, and his disciples and a large crowd accompanied him. As he drew near to the gate of the city, a man who had died was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. A large crowd from the city was with her. When the Lord saw her, he was moved with pity, and he said to her, "Don't weep." He stepped forward and touched the coffin. The bearers halted, and he said, "Young man, I tell you, get up." The dead man sat up and began to speak, and Jesus gave him to his mother. Fear seized them all, and they glorified God, exclaiming, "A great prophet has risen in our midst. God has visited his people." This report about him spread through the whole of Judea and in all the surrounding region. This is good news from the Lord. Before Mass, Deacon Eddie said to me in the sacristy, rightly, "I wonder what it's like to come back from the dead. If you're dead and you have to live again." Well, all the recent studies say that people who have gone through near-death experiences, none of them want to come back. They're all quite happy, it seems, on the other side. It's only we on this side who are upset. Now that's a key to actually understanding the real import of this gospel. Because, as I've told you many times in the past, all of the healing and miracle stories are not meant for you to say, "Wow, Jesus is God." In this case, he can raise people from the dead. That's not even the point. It really isn't. Do you know who is raised from the dead in this gospel? Not the boy, the mother. Now, because we don't understand the social context, we don't get it. In most of history, in most cultures, certainly the Mediterranean culture, a woman had no rights, no power, no education. She was first of all owned by her father, which is still symbolized when the father gives his daughter away at a wedding, which is fine. But then after the father owned her, he gave her to the husband, and now the husband owned her. And so a widow is a symbol, as we see in the first reading and the third, and they parallel one another. This is clearly based on Elijah's doing the same thing. In fact, some of the same phrases are used. He gave him back to his mother, for example. We see that the woman, the widow, has no social security backup whatsoever. She is a symbol of helplessness, powerlessness. She has lost her husband, and now she's lost her only other support, which is the oldest son. And the oldest son is expected to take care of the mother till death. So in returning the boy to the mother, you see the real significance. She has her life back. That's really his act of kindness and caring. Not that I'm a Greek scholar, don't be impressed, but I read these things. This very line that's translated for you, he was moved with pity. It actually, in the Greek, I'm told, is a very, very strong word, saying he was touched in his bowels, which means he felt it deeply, deeply. The pain, the helplessness, the desperate situation of this woman. So if there's any message in this gospel today and in this first reading where Elijah the prophet also raises the son of a widow, it's that we have to recognize how many people in society, women in particular, in much of the world, are powerless. They have no backup. They have to do what their husband says. They can't have a mind of their own. We don't allow them to be educated, because then they could operate on their own, and we don't want them to do that, do we? We want them to be totally dependent upon men. The word for that is called patriarchy. Now, you might not use that word, you don't need to, but it has defined much of human history. The form it takes in Latino culture, you know the word, it's called machismo. It takes its shape in every culture, that men have all the power, men call all the shots, men tell women what to do. And here's the sad and bad effect of that, is in that structure, in that setting, in that attitude, neither of us grow up. The men remain very immature because they think they have power that they really don't have. And the women also are forced to remain childish. That's not God's intention. What we have to encourage and make possible is adult, mature Christianity, where women are allowed to be women, adult women, where men are allowed to be men, adult men, who treat other people as partners, as equals, as friends, as lovers. Then, in that context, both grow up. Both are allowed to become adult sons and daughters of God. So you see why we do need to open up the Scriptures. Because you could hear that gospel you just all heard and really miss the major point. It's not a gospel about Jesus raising a boy from the dead. It's a gospel about Jesus giving a son back to a mother and giving her life back, and really giving his back too. But we assume he died later, like all of us do. The point is not life in this world. The point is depth of life, truth of life, reality of life for all concerned. And that's the whole desire and intention of a celebration, a sacrament, a mass, a communion that we're now celebrating together.